Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we are here to recap and review Queen Sugar Season 5, Episode 1, which was titled Late February 2020. And we know that it was late February 2020 when all of our worlds were turned upside down, okay? So I think we're going to get 2 seasons this year because now would be the time that they would be filming season 6, which has already been approved and I believe they're already working on. And so season 5 normally would have aired in June of last year, but due to COVID, they weren't able to bring us that season. So on the much anticipated season premiere, we pick up where we left off in 2019 would it have been, where we find out that the Boudreaux have another family member, which is a black daughter. Okay, Sam Boudreaux was hidden with a black woman, and they have a daughter named Parker, and Parker is played by, oh God, what is her, how do you pronounce her name? Amira Van. She played Ernestine in Underground, and if you guys didn't get to catch Underground, which was a phenomenal series that got cut too soon, they air episodes on Tuesday nights. So even if you want to revisit it or you've never watched it, it now comes on OWN. And I believe that they were hoping to get a lot of attention, a lot of viewership to kind of decide if they were going to extend the seasons on that. But it doesn't seem like they've done a lot of promoting to remind people that the show is on, because as much as I love Underground, I can never remember to go back and watch. And then they have added some portions of the show where the cast members and the writers and everything are actually talking about the show, about the episodes, and explaining it to the viewers as far as what is going on. So Underground, great show. Tuesday nights on OWN. It is worth checking out if you have never seen those, seen that series before. So back to Queen Sugar. It comes on Tuesdays at 8 o'clock. And I believe before it used to come on Wednesday nights, but a lot of people may have missed it because of the time change. So it's 8 p.m. Tuesday nights. So I'm going to get into the show. It's the end of Black History Month, and Charlie has a big celebration planned, and she is going to host a celebration honoring Saint Josephine, the enslaved woman who the parish St. Joe is named after. And then we have Aunt Vi in Hollywood, who, you know, when it opens up, they're preparing all these cakes and dishes and everything for the event that Charlie is going to put on. And so meanwhile, Nova has an event of her own, and she's going to be launching a new website that will be funded by the sales that she made on her book. And if you guys remember in the last season, Nova wrote this book, spilled tea on everybody, okay? Put everybody on blast, everybody business out there in the streets. Everybody was mad at her. And so I guess they've had over a year to mend and heal, you know, from the pain of that book coming out and putting them all on Front Street. And so then we also have Frances Boudreaux. Remember, she was arrested for setting fire to Queen Sugar, the sugar mill. And so in this episode, she is going to get sentenced for that because she was found guilty. And then in the final episode of the last season, you know, it was clear that, you know, Charlie would have a new nemesis, which would be Parker, who is Sam's daughter. For the most part in this episode, Micah is going to miss all the drama because remember, he decided, you know, he wasn't going to Harvard. He was going to go to a local historically Black college, you know, close to home. And even though he used being close to home as an excuse, it appears that he doesn't come home at all. And so Charlie was really hoping that he would come home for her event, But Michael lets her know, no, Mom, I won't be there. Okay, enjoy yourself. I'm proud of you, but I got some things to take care of over here on this college campus. Here is the recap, okay? It's mid-February 2020. You know, like I pointed out that, you know, the pandemic is about to knock us off our feet, okay? And so Nova has cut off her locks, right? She has just gone through some spirituality stuff. She got Calvin in her life. Remember, he's the white police officer she was having the affair with. And so when her scene opens up, you know, she's burning incense and she's doing her, you know, affirmations, and, you know, she's communing with the elders. And as she's talking and praying and, you know, doing all of that, you know, she is cutting off her locks, child, cutting them off, and saying that, you know, it is symbolic of a new journey that she is about to take. And you guys know that whenever a woman cuts her hair, shaves her head, then people always think that she is going through some type of crisis in her life, but it's really a symbolic gesture that you're letting go of those things that are weighing you down. So meanwhile, Ralph Angel, you know, when we get to the farm, he's outside reading, and then Blue comes up behind him. And Blue, well, I guess he has aged like 2 years since we last seen him, but Blue is really growing up. And so, you know, he comes out, you know, acting like a Star Wars character and letting Ralph Angel know that breakfast is ready, that he done made breakfast, okay? So I guess he is really growing up. So then we have a scene where they bring breakfast to Darla. She is in bed looking, you know, strung out and depressed. And then I had to remember that she is strung out and depressed because Darla then got back on drugs. You know, Charlie had done fired her from the job at the sugar mill. And Mom and Daddy then came and wrecked her world. We done found out that Ralph Angel ain't the baby daddy, and that Darla was raped, you know, by some guys at a party. So yeah, Darla done been through some things, okay? So I had to remind myself when I was saying, why is Darla laying in that bed looking like that? So Darla, you know, she's happy to be back there with Ralph Angel and Blue. And so she eats some of her toast, and, you know, she tells Ralph Angel and tell Blue, you know, oh, it is so good. And so then Blue runs out the room, and Ralph Angel like, well, how you gonna sit there and eat that burnt toast and tell that boy that it was good? But that is what mamas do. Like, we never want to hurt our baby's feelings. So then we move over to Aunt Vi in Hollywood. And like I said, they are cooking the food, you know, for this event that Charlie is putting on. And it's mainly cakes and pies and stuff like that because, you know, she has her own restaurant. And so they're working overtime, you know, for the celebration in honor of St. Josephine, their county's namesake. And Hollywood looks like he has put on some COVID pounds like some of the rest of us have done. Because I know, I'm like, I was already working from home before COVID started. So why I done gained like 20 pounds since all of this started? Like, is it stress? Is it worry? Because it surely ain't from eating, because I'm actually eating less, because I'm not going out to dinner every other week and traveling and stuff like that. So, yeah, child, I feel you, Hollywood, okay? So then Hollywood, you know, he wants to get busy. Hollywood said he needs some loving, okay? And that it's only going to take about 10 minutes. And Aunt Vi was like, you know, you're not going to mess up my day. But Hollywood is like, yeah, but I need this. I need this. And then we found out that Hollywood, remember, he had got that money from the settlement with the rigs, or something had happened, and he got this money. He started his own, or bought this location where he was going to start this clubhouse or something for men. And so they talk about that for a few minutes and how he hasn't gotten that up and running. But Hollywood was not to be distracted. He was like, I need 10 minutes to die. So then Aunt Vi finally gave in and said, well, we're going to need 20 minutes because we're going to need 10 minutes for me and 10 minutes for you. And so then they going on in the back room. So I guess they was going to get busy on her office desk or in the bathroom or somewhere. But I'm just happy for Aunt Vi and Hollywood that Aunt Vi probably damn near 70, but she's still getting a freak on. So then we go to Charlie, and she's at home and she's watching the news, and it's the day of Francis Boudreaux's sentencing, when she calls Micah, and then this is when Micah lets her know that he is busy and he won't be there for her celebration. And so to make things worse with Charlie, someone rushes Micah off the phone. So one of his college friends comes in and say, man, it's time. We got to go. And so Michael said, I got to go, Mom. I'll talk to you later, but good luck, and I love you. So Charlie heads to the courthouse in time to greet her family. And as she is driving up, you know, there's a story on the radio talking about the COVID cases in China. And you guys remember before we realized that COVID had hit the U.S., there was these stories about the cases in China. There were stories about, and I'm saying China like Donald Trump, you know, he's like the China virus, you know, so got to stop that. But anyway, remember the boats were out in the water. People had went on these cruises and they couldn't get back into the U.S. because they didn't want them bringing the disease here. And then lo and behold, we found out that the disease was already here. We just didn't know it yet, and things were about to explode. And so they're still walking around, you know, in this show, like COVID hasn't hit the U.S. yet, but we'll find out that later on in the season that they are going to be impacted. So everybody goes inside, you know, to watch Frances get her just due. And they probably were going to be lenient with Frances, but Frances, you know, was acting like a Karen. She was acting self-entitled and was basically saying that she was set up, you know, that she's being accused of these things that, you know, she didn't do, and that she was a businesswoman and she had a right, you know, to strategize and, you know, against her competitor. And so the judge was like, you have no remorse. Like, you are not accused of a crime, lady. You are convicted of a crime, and you need to accept your conviction because you're about to go to jail, you know. But Frances was all high and mighty, and the judge was like, well, fine, girl, if this is how you want to act, I'm sentencing you to 7 years in prison. And I thought Frances was going to have a heart attack right then and there. So as all of this is going on, Parker has walked into the courtroom, and so she's standing in the back and she's just observing what's going on and fighting the urge to go up there and help her auntie and like tell her auntie, can you shut up? And I really thought that Parker was going to say, you know, Judge, I'm here, you know, for the defendant, and I want to request, you know, a resentencing hearing or something, but she just stood there and watched on. Of course, Charlie and her family were happy that things, you know, turned out the way that they did, and they were all hugging and celebrating. And then I thought it was so funny that Charlie had on this really pretty royal blue dress, but the dress was like one shoulder was out, like it was all swooped down, and I was like, was that really appropriate to go to the court hearing in, Charlie? But she looked cute in it, and I ain't gonna take that from her. She did look cute. It's a few hours before the launch of Nova's website. And so Darla and Ralph Angel are home, and, you know, she's about to go pick up Blue from school. And so she reminds Ralph Angel, you know, about the party and tells him that he really should go. But Ralph Angel is obviously holding on to his animosity about that book and not ready to totally forgive Nova for what she did, for exposing, you know, because in the book she told that Blue wasn't his son. She talked about Darla's drug abuse and how they saved Darla out, you know, rescued her from the crack house. And I was just like, Nova, you're just doing way too much, girl. But, you know, Ralph Angel say, you know, he'll think about it, but he ain't sure. So then the two of them kiss. And, you know, once again, Darla just still not looking sure of herself. So then there is a knock at the door, and Ralph Angel goes to open the door, and there is a courier there with a letter that he has to sign for. And so Darla is asking him, like, what's wrong? What does it say? But Ralph Angel looked like he was about to blow a gasket, okay? And so he just balled up the letter and walked out. Like, what the hell now? So, you know, it's just always something going on, you know, to call angst and discord. Like, they can never just be happy on Queen Sugar. So it's the night of the party. It's in full swing. Nova is, making the rounds around the room, pouring wine for her guests. She has a nice little, audience present. And so her friend Red is there, and, he's criticizing her for, moving on from her past because, they still want to be in the struggle, in the Black Lives Movement, marching down the street with their slogans. And Nova is like, it ain't working. Like, we can march till the cows come home, but we got to, come up with other means to get our message out. And that's pretty much what her website is all about. So Nova says that she's growing, okay? And then she overhears a conversation with her friend Camilla and Calvin. Remember, Calvin is the white boyfriend. And so they're talking about police brutality, and Camilla just wants to make sure that Calvin is down for the cause, that he has put his police ways, his police training behind him. Because remember, I can't remember if Calvin quit the police force or if he was fired. I think he quit. And he's going to start like a private investigator business or security firm, child. I don't know. It's been a year, since we had a show. And so he ensures her, okay, that he is down for the cause, that he's going to support Nova no matter what goes on. And so that is enough for Carmela, to give him the fist bump and say, okay, we in this together. You're going to take care of my girl. So Charlie runs in late, and Nova decides to go ahead and get started. And then I think Aunt Vi might have been late also, kind of tiptoe in there. And so as Nova is doing her presentation, Ralph Angel walks in. He got that look on his face that something is wrong. And so after Nova explains the concept of the website, which is going to be called True Papers, and it's supposed to be a place for authentic Black voices that are true and unapologetic, talking about the Black cause, the Black struggles, coming up with solutions and how to deal with what is going on. And so after the introduction, she plays this video from the website, and it is a Black guy who is talking about something that happened in Oklahoma. So Ralph Angel says that he needs to talk to her, and so they head into the kitchen, and then of course Charlie sees them going in the kitchen, so that meant she needed to be there too, right? So Ralph Angel tells them about the letter that he received, and basically all the farmers are getting this letter, and it is telling them that it is about eminent domain. And basically eminent domain is when the government comes in and seizes your property and force you to leave, and then they'll pay you money. And for my master's program, I actually have a website if you guys want to check it out. It's not finished. I did get my master's, but the website I'm still working on, but it was my master's project. And it's called blackchurchesofstpetersburg.com. blackchurchesofstpetersburg.com. And I'm basically talking about how this community in St. Petersburg, which was known as the gas plant district, was wiped out due to the first part of it was taken for the interstate. And then the other part was taken for the baseball stadium that's there now, and how all these Black churches were centered in this, I think it's 65 acres of land, and they were forced out because of, the stadium coming. And so that dispersed all the churches around the city, and then basically talking about how that loss of community and how these, small churches got this money to become big churches that have small congregations. And so I talk about, different aspects of what this meant. And one of the things that I talk about is that when the interstate came through, they basically ripped these people off that were living down there. And so the churches learned from the first phase of clearing out the land that the value isn't in the houses, the value is in the land. And so they fought for the value of the land in order to be able to move to their new locations, build at the time these state-of-the-art edifices, and to start programs and that type of thing. So blackchurchesofstpetersburg.com, and I'm going to verify that for you guys and put it down below if you want to go check it out. And so basically the farmers get the eminent domain, and unless you have a lot of money to fight eminent domain cases, you're going to lose your property. And so you end up, taking the money. And of course, with the gas plant area, going back to that, the white businesses and the Jewish owned businesses, they got top dollar because they understood, the value of the land, whereas the black people got pennies on the dollar and was really screwed. Okay. So then we move on, and so we have a scene where Charlie calls in an emergency council meeting for later that night. Like when she left Nova, she was on the phone, like, we need to have a meeting and talk about what's going on. And so of course the meeting is tense. The residents are like, what is going on? Why is this happening? And so then Charlie and the other black council member, Jackson Fortuna, I think his name is, so he's sitting there, he's annoyed because he's like, you done woke me up in the middle of the night to come down here and talk about these letters that went out when I told you that this is what was going to happen, but you want to do everything your way, and then now everybody else has to suffer from it. And plus, he didn't have a problem because it started out they were going to build a prison. So then they fought the prison and got that taken off the table. Then they changed it from a prison to the interstate coming through. And so he was in support of the interstate because then they felt that that would bring more traffic through St. Joe. And then it's supposed to bring in business and all that stuff, which doesn't always happen. Charlie says that she wants to put it on the record, that Jackson Fortuna is concerned about his beauty rest and not the concern of the farmers who are about to lose their land. And so they're just going back and forth, and then Ralph Angel jumps up and, he calls Jackson a sellout and then lashes out at Charlie for not doing what she promised, which was to save their land. And so people are in agreement with Ralph Angel as he demands that the entire council actually do something to stop the seizure of the farms instead of letting these two black people bicker and go back and forth and at each other's throats. Ralph Angel gets home, he burns the letter. He throws it in the sink, sets it on fire. So Nova comes over and, she waits for him to pour water on the burning letter to talk to him. And so she asks Ralph Angel, if it's okay. And he assures her that he's not letting anybody take his land, that his father gave him, that, he's going to farm that land and make something of it. And then Nova, lets him know that she's in the fight with him because they can't lose sight of the fact that their mother is buried on that land. And so I was like, Lord Jesus, because I forgot that the dad had buried the mom out there on the property. I don't even think he was allowed to do that. But anyway, so she tells Ralph, that she loves him and that she always will, and that she hopes that he'll find it in his heart to one day forgive her. And so Ralph Angel says that, he'll try, putting a smile on Nova's face, letting her know that there's hope. And then she thanks him, gives him a kiss on the forehead, and tells him that he doesn't have to fight for the land by himself. Now, isn't it interesting that Ralph Angel's still trying to hold a grudge, but when he got that letter, he ran his butt to Nova's house, angry and upset, needing somebody to talk to and show the letter to. So I'm like, Ralph Angel, you can't have it both ways, dude, okay? And so when I talk about, the interstate, it doesn't really bring business because, like I was saying earlier in this video, when that property called the gas plant area, the first phase was I-275 that came through. So not only did I-275 come through the gas plant area, but then it went up and it cut through this business district, which was called the Deuces. And the Deuces is 22nd Street, and it runs from 5th Avenue to 18th Avenue, so about 13 blocks. And it was like another hub. So in the gas plant area, you had a lot of businesses, but the Deuces also had a lot of businesses. They had like the Manhattan Casino, which is like a historic landmark, and, just a lot of different little businesses, daycare centers, churches, grocery stores. And I think if you go through most cities in the black community, at one point, there is this, this old street that once was very vibrant and very alive and had small Black businesses. And one of the things, if you guys watch the show, The Bell Collective, is that they talk about this historic street in, I think that show is in Jackson, Mississippi, and they talk about this street, and that street reminds me so much of the Deuces in St. Pete and how they show the old black and white photos of the buildings that are now, you know, shut down. And so what happened when the interstate came through is all these Black businesses were lost to eminent domain. And now we have like this unincorporated land, the interstate runs through, and then it picks up on the other side. And then there's a little life left. Like some of the businesses are still there. Some of them are closed, and some of them have new businesses, like the college, an extension of the local community college has built a branch in that area. And so there was this one house that refused, these owners refused to sell. They're like, we are not selling our property. So you got these open fields where they tore everything down. And then you got this one house, this one green house that's just sitting there. And they say that they're not selling that house. They don't give a damn. Okay, what happens? And so now the city actually lost. They had to pay the government back like $3 million because a part of that eminent domain, you know, the federal government allowing them to do the eminent domain and take this property from people, is that the land that where they knocked everything down, they had to redevelop that land and create small businesses. And this is something that happened, guys, like in the 70s and 80s. And they still did not build these businesses. So they ended up paying the $3 million back. And what I found out is by paying the $3 million back, or the $3 million fine, the city can now do whatever they want with this land. Okay. And of course, they're not giving the land back to the Black businesses. Now they're trying to build this arts district. If you are familiar with Wynwood down in Miami, Florida, that's what they're trying to create where I live now, on this land that they took away from the Black people. And then baseball is getting ready to leave in 2027. We're going to lose the baseball team, and they've already decided how they're going to reincorporate that land and, you know, build like, I mean, they got all these ideas. They're going to build hotels. They're going to build condos. They're going to build a convention center. All this stuff on this land that they took from the Black people, and not even considering the Black people in the gas plant district or along the Deuces as they make these plans. And when I tell you, I sit on these Zoom calls with these developers, okay, like people send me the link, like, girl, get on this call, get on this call. And so I'm sitting there just listening to these people talk about our communities and our neighborhoods like we don't even exist. And they have their little meetings and they just talk about, you know, how, oh, well, we're not going to have affordable housing. Well, they're definitely not going to have Section 8, okay? But we might have 10% of an apartment building, you know, be affordable housing, but it's going to be income-based, like 30% of your income, 50%, that type of stuff. It is so crazy, and I could go on and on all day, but we're doing this recap for Queen Sugar, okay? It's the next day, and they have an emergency court hearing. And so it's Charlie and Nova, and I can't remember if there was an attorney there with them, but I thought it was so odd that Charlie and Nova were doing all the talking. And I'm thinking, shouldn't this be a city attorney there defending this case? Like, why is Charlie and Nova? Charlie, who definitely has a conflict of interest because she is on the city council, plus it's her family that she's trying to help save their land. But anyway, child, so they talking on behalf of the farmers, and then Parker is there with an attorney, and they're talking on behalf, and I think it's called the Beckington Group, that's trying to get this land and bring, that was going to build a prison, and now they're going to build this interstate to come through. But anyway, they're arguing their case, and so Parker attorney says that Charlie is being self-serving and only wants to save her sugar mill and her family's farm. And then Charlie argues that she is there to uphold the will of the people who voted her into office to save that land. And so I was just like, okay, anyway, y'all doing too much as usual. So then Nova, joins the conversation and she presents the data from the video. So it turns out that the video with the guy talking about Oklahoma was talking about, an eminent domain case similar to what's going on in St. Joe. But in that case, they cleared the land because they said it was a cancer alley, and then they forced the people off this land and then reincorporated the land afterwards. And so they say that there needs to be an environmental study. They were told, the people in Oklahoma were told that there needed to be an environmental study done, and then that's how they halted whatever happened. The judge issues a temporary injunction and requires the company to provide an environmental study as well as a proposal for an alternate route of the highway that impacts less properties. So outside the judge's chambers, Parker and Charlie square off. And so Parker tells Charlie that, in light of Francis' 7-year sentence and this injunction in her favor, that she's having a pretty good week. But one badass black woman to another badass black woman, she wants to have one conversation alone. So Nova steps up and was like, you don't get to ignore me and act like I'm not standing here. But Parker still ignored her, okay? And so she stood down a little bit, and says that, she wants to talk to see if they can reach a common ground. And so Parker looks at Charlie and says that if she changes her mind, she's willing to meet and talk anytime, any place. But it didn't seem like Nova was invited into that conversation. So meanwhile, we go to Hollywood's clubhouse, and he's there with Prosper and Ralph Angel. And so they're painting the walls, look like for the second or third time. And so they're mad at Hollywood, because he keeps changing the color. And so they're going from a yellow to like a pea soup green. Both colors was ugly, so it didn't really matter. And so they're questioning his decision about the color, that he's chosen this time. They start laughing, about the color, and then they talk about the concept of him having this clubhouse for grown men. Like, what is this going to end up being? Like, how is this going to benefit us? But Hollywood held his own and said that this was a dream of his and something that, he wants to follow through with. Ralph Angel has to leave, because Dollar and Blue are cooking and Blue wants him home on time, okay? So Ralph Angel makes it home for dinner and Blue gets Ralph Angel to bless the food, saying that he never does it. That's either him or Dollar, that's praying over the food. And so during the prayer, Ralph Angel says that he wants to thank the love of his life. And when I tell y'all, Dollar just looked tired and unsure to me. And I can't blame her because of all that she's gone through. And then I'm thinking about the fact that it has to be hard and also uncomfortable to be in a house where somebody has kicked you out of once before. Like, how do you ever get comfortable in that space again and make it feel like it's your home again? And then I got to thinking, why did Darla even move out of the house? Remember Darla had her own house, that little cute house her parents had got for her. Like, why did she even move out of that house and decide to come back and move in with Ralph Angel? And so I think a lot of that may be weighing on her and, giving her pause and making her reserved about, coming back full force with Ralph Angel. She's probably grateful that he saved her, from the drugs again and helped her get back on her feet. But I'm sure in the recesses of her mind, she's still thinking about all that they've been through and the fact that she still hasn't really, dealt with the rape situation and, acknowledge who were the people that raped her and confronted them, and not knowing who Blue's real father is, because it could be one of multiple people. And so I'm not sure if that's going to come back up, later on in the season, because you guys know I'm still waiting on that whole when Ralph Angel robbed that store in the first season, the first episode of the first season. I know I'm wrong. I know I'm being petty, but I am still waiting for that to come back and bite Ralph Angel in his ass. And we have a brief scene with Nova at home with Calvin. And child, I don't know why Nova let this man move into her house, because we know how Nova is. And that's probably going to be an issue down the road too. But Calvin is laying in the bed on Nova's silk pillows and he is eating. And child, Nova was like, you know, she was trying to be nice about it and smile and act like she was joking. But Nova really had an issue with that man laying in her bed eating. Okay. So, you know, she was kind of nice, nasty about it. But Calvin, you know, he got to hear and said he wasn't going to eat in the bed no more. So then it's the next day and Nova's at home and Calvin, you know, is concerned about his grandfather. And so they're having a barbecue for the grandfather's 85th birthday. And Nova wants to come. She's excited, like, you know, he finally gets to introduce her to his family. She's introduced him to her family and that they are on the right path. But Calvin is like, you know, his dad is a racist. The granddaddy is a racist. And he don't know how he going to accept Nova. And Nova's like, pretty much, we got to confront it and let it do what it do. In order to peel off the bandages, we first, you know, got to peel it back and see if it's healing well, if it's healed, or if it's just still an infection under there. But she's up for the challenge and feels that this is something that they have to do if they're going to move forward. And you guys know how I am about these shows that be having the same story themes. And if you watch the show Sisters by Tyler Perry, which is a god-awful show, but I keep watching it. I'm like, it's bad. The acting is bad, but the concept of the show, I love girlfriend shows. And so I keep hanging in there, hoping that it is going to get better over time. And so one of the things they have on that show is one of the characters is dating a white guy. His family is racist. They show up at her job at the airport and confront her and tell her to get out of their family, leave their brother alone. And then she gets home and they have beat up the brother and he's laying on the floor outside the apartment. So when I started seeing them similarities, I'm like, see, these writers be talking and spilling the tea. And then these other shows that air first, you know, they get to grab on it. But then it's also interesting to see the different levels of acting, okay, and how they pull off these scenes. So Nova says she's in it to win at Calvin, and she going to that party. She don't give a damn, okay? So we move over to Charlie, and her and Parker are meeting at the sugar mill. So Parker asks her if she plans to rebuild once she gets her big insurance check from the fire that Francis has set. And so Charlie doesn't answer, but takes her on a tour of the mill. And during that conversation, you know, they share their philosophical differences and, you know, why each one, they both have a common goal, but they're just like going about it in different ways. And so Parker criticizes Charlie for keeping the black families tied to an old system that, quote, that wasn't made for them. And so, you know, black people were brought to America, you know, to be enslaved and to work these farms to provide free labor. And so we've told black people, oh, you're great farmers because that's what you did in slavery. And so black farmers, there are black farmers out there. They do make money, but they still aren't as big as the white farmers. And then as things are changing, you know, there isn't as much of a demand, I guess, or, you know, like the world is just changing how we get our food, where we're getting our food from, and is it even really food, or is it manufactured in a factory somewhere? And so Parker is basically saying, give them other options, show them that they can be more than farmers. And how many farmers today have children that want to carry on the tradition? Because I'm thinking with each generation, farming becomes less and less and less as an option for black families, because black people in general, like I couldn't picture my daughter wanting to go work on a farm, you know, as when we were little kids, we thought it was fun to go out in the cornfield and, you know, pick the corn and pick the peas and all of that. But our children ain't trying to do that. So I get where Parker is coming from. And so Charlie strongly disagrees here. And Charlie actually brought Parker to the mill, so that she can show her the damage that Frances did, but it just went all over Parker's head. And so Parker told Charlie she was being Booker T. Washington. And then Charlie tells her, oh, well, I guess you W.E.B. Du Bois, because, they had that similar thing where, W.E.B. Du Bois was about, the talented 10th and, them going out and being able to do the same thing that white people do. Whereas Booker T. Washington, was about knowing your place and just get a job. What Booker T. Washington wanted would be equivalent to get you a good job, with a company that you can retire from, opposed to W.E.B. Du Bois today would say, no, start your own business, become an entrepreneur, become a small business owner. Don't be dependent on that company that might not be here. And when they close, they take your pension and everything else with it. And so those differences still remain today. Parker, finished stating, her position on the matter. And then she tells Charlie that Nova said some of the same things that she's saying in her book. And so Charlie doesn't like the fact that Parker is trying to pit Nova against her, by using Nova's own words, and that she supports Nova. And so Parker says that she's not there to make threats, but she's there to sweeten the deal for the farmers. She says that the Beckerton Group is ready to take eminent domain off the table altogether and double the offer that will be made to the farmers for giving up their land. And she's saying that, the government is not going to be as generous as they are willing to be. So Charlie tells her that she has no sense of concept of how things work, that she brought her there to show Parker the damage that Frances has done. Like, why can't you see this? And so Charlie then declares that the farmers will not take the deal. And so Parker was like, okay, you speaking for all the farmers now? Are you sure about that? And so Charlie was standing there kind of thinking, like, the last time I spoke on behalf of the farmers without first consulting the farmers, it got me into a lot of hot water, and maybe I need to stand down. But her pride would not allow her. So Parker walks off, letting Charlie know that the fight has just begun. And so Charlie knows that she has messed up, but she don't know how she messed up. So then we go to Micah over on the college campus. And basically Micah is pledging a fraternity. And so they, had like an emergency meeting. And, they go through the little rituals and routines that the frats go through when they're crossing over. And he finds out that, he has crossed the line and he is now a frat brother. And now he need to tell his mama, okay, or he might keep it from her. And so speaking of crossed over, for those who didn't know, during COVID last year, the actor that plays Micah actually came out to viewers. I mean, I think he's always been openly gay, but some of us didn't know he was gay. Okay, so he came out with a little photo shoot of him and his boo, his long-term partner. So if you didn't know, now you know Micah is gay. Oh, child. So finally, it's time for the Feast of St. Josephine. So the Bordelons are at the church dressed in purple, celebrating the event. And it was a really beautiful event. I'm not sure if it looked like a church, but whatever the building was, it had like this lake and this bridge, so they had the kids coming out and they were holding these pictures of famous people, famous Black people, and they had the lights going. And so the kids walked across the bridge, and then Charlie was standing on the other side, and she met the kids, and then she gave this speech about who Josephine was. And Aunt Vi was like, she can't believe that these people have been living in this town all these years and didn't know that St. Joe was named after a Black woman. And so Charlie lets them know that every year going forward at the end of Black History Month, that they will celebrate St. Josephine and have like this big honor and festival and everything. And so the MC announces that they're inside having dinner, And the MC for the evening gets up and she announces that there is a representative from the bank who wants to make an announcement. So child, lo and behold, Parker then got her a seat on the board of directors at the bank. And so she come rolling up to the podium and surprising everybody in the room. And, you know, Charlie was about to fall out, thinking about the conversation they had at the sugar mill and thinking, Lord Jesus, what is this woman about to say? So child, Parker said she wanted to thank Charlie, you know, for this festivities that was going on and how the bank supports, you know, what they're doing. But she also was there to announce that the Beckington Group has a new route proposal for the highway, because remember, that's what the judge told them they needed to do. And that instead of going through the farms, it is now going to run north on Main Street through 21st Road. And so Parker thanks Charlie for her hard work. And so everybody was looking around like, what the hell going on? And then Charlie was like, okay, it's not final yet. No, before Charlie said it wasn't final, she was just sitting there like confused as to what the hell Parker had just, this chess move that Parker had just pulled on her ass. Okay. So then Jill was sitting there like, 21st Road, well, ain't that where the Black Cemetery is? And then everybody else figured out it was where the Black Cemetery was. So Charlie was like, hold on, nothing's been approved. It's not finalized. This is just preliminary. So of course, you know, they mad at Charlie once again. So Charlie, you know, is angry. So she walks out of the hall and goes to her office. And so she tears down. So actually they had the ceremony at that church, but then I think the banquet was at the sugar mill. So she goes in her office and she tears down some plans that were on her wall. And I'm not sure if it was the map of the area that the eminent domain or whatever was going on, or if it was plans for something else. I didn't really get to see what it was, but she tore it down. And so Aunt Vi walks in, you know, to check on her and make sure she's okay. And so Charlie tells her that she's not all right, but she will be, and that she doesn't know what she's going to do, but she knows she is not going to lose. And ain't that how it starts every time when Charlie is trying? Charlie ain't caught a win for real, y'all. She has been taking L's since she showed up in St. Josephine. So this is so interesting once again, because as construction and urban renewal takes place here where I live, and they start tearing people's houses, tearing stuff down to build new stuff, we have like three pieces of property in Tampa. I think the schools, new schools were built, and now they're finding out that all these schools are built on Black cemeteries. Over here where I live at, the parking lot for the stadium that I was telling you guys earlier is built on a Black cemetery. So I guess they just go in and just, would they be building on their own, on their ancestors' cemeteries like they do our cemeteries? Just no regard for Black life. Just don't care about us, living or dead. No respect, no honor, no nothing. So I guess in St. Joe, they got to build on the cemeteries, child. So at the end of the episode, Darla and Ralph Angel are walking along the river. And so during their walk, Ralph Angel stops and gets down on one knee and proposes to Darla. And Darla tearfully says yes. You know, he then picks her up and continues walking as he's screaming out, "This my wife. This my wife right here." So, one thing I know for sure, Darla do love Ralph Angel. Now, I have no doubt about that. She loves him. She loves Blue, and she loves the idea of them being a family. But we gonna see if Darla and Ralph Angel gonna get married. This is gonna work out, because Darla, just to me, Darla just looks sad and unsure and tired. Okay, she just want to be steady. You know, she want to be happy. She don't want to be fighting with Charlie. She don't want to be fighting for land. She don't want to make, you know, the farm her house, and then, you know, they come and bulldoze the house. She's just tired, y'all. But let's encourage and keep Darla lifted in prayers. And so that was the recap for Season 5, Episode 1, late February 2020 for Queen Sugar. Go ahead, leave your comments below, rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.